It's welcome news that most of the reasonable people in America and the rest of the world finally now understand that the whole Russian collusion narrative was a hoax. However, many of the people involved in creating and perpetrating that hoax are still right there in places of power of influence. With this in mind, one has to wonder what exactly are they capable of doing now to protect themselves from investigation and possible prosecution, if not jail time. As I'm sure readers of this site understand, Trump is not one to let insults or attacks on him go unanswered. Trump is indeed a counterpuncher, and he always punches back harder than the original attack he received. So there is very little doubt that Trump plans on doing everything he can to destroy those behind the Russian hoax. And the Russian hoax was by far the largest attack on Trump he has ever had in his entire life and career, so you can expect a nuclear-level response when the time is right. This isn't just a hunch either. Today, during an interview with Sean Hannity on Fox News, Trump insisted that he plans to make sure this never happens again, whether it be 50 years or 100 years in the future. He was suggesting that the punishment needs to be so severe that people will remember it 100 years from now. Those are pretty strong words, especially coming from a guy who is well known for following through with his threats. So with that in mind, the people behind the Russian hoax, both the ones we know about and the ones we haven't heard about yet, will be terribly desperate come 2020 to get Trump out of office in an attempt to stop any ongoing investigations. Really, their only hope is to get a sympathetic Democrat in office, along with their own cabinet, AG, etc., who will stop any ongoing investigations that Trump starts in the next 2 years. Any investigation that is launched now into the Russian hoax will take at least a year and probably longer. That would put the findings being released around the time of the 2020 campaign and election, and most likely after. So a Democrat making it into office would be able to soften the results and keep everyone guilty from seeing any prosecution. And of course, the media wouldn't say a word about it, and it would be like the Russian hoax never happened in the first place. And that's the part of this whole thing that has me worried. The same people that orchestrated the largest scandal in political history are for the most part still in government and media. What desperate and crazy thing will they do now to protect themselves? Could stealing the 2020 election be on the table? That may sound crazy, but what they did with the Russian hoax is far crazier and far more involved than simply stuffing a few ballot boxes. For example, in 2016 Trump won Michigan by just over 10,000 votes. That's a pretty small margin, and most likely 2020 will play out similar to 2016 as the electorate hasn't changed much. It's going to be a tight race, but one Trump should still win. But how hard is it to fraudulently produce 11,000 votes in order to swing the state the other way? Certainly it's easier than perpetrating the Russian hoax. If you remember, during the most recent midterm, boxes of votes started to magically appear all over the place in the tight Florida races. Boxes were found in car trunks and school closets days after the election and during the recount. It was obviously all a fraudulent attempt to steal the elections. So none of what I'm suggesting is without precedent. Far from it, it's almost to be expected. So while the results of the Mueller report are still very good news, we are not out of the woods yet. I wouldn't be surprised if we see moves of desperation by those who perpetrated the Russian hoax in the first place in an attempt to save themselves, and those who ordered them to do it.